Hi, Flourish family. Welcome back to another episode of the Financial Flourish podcast. I'm your host, Michele Pemberton. It's the end of 2025. I can't believe it. I know that it's cliche, but where did the time go? I really feel like 2025 went by really quickly. And this is special for us because this is the year that Financial Flourish started. It started as a simple idea, a space to talk about money in a way that felt honest, grounded, and sustainable. A place where women could learn about finances without pressure, shame, or unrealistic expectation. When I launched this podcast, the goal was never perfection. The goal was clarity, the goal was confidence, and the goal was to create conversations around money that actually support real life. Over the course of this year, we've talked about budgeting, debt, saving, investment, mindset, discipline, and grace. We've talked about how money intersects with faith, values, work, rest, and peace. If you've been listening from the very beginning, or if you found us recently, I want you to know how grateful I am that you're here. This episode is not about wrapping things up neatly because it's the end of the year. It's about reflecting honestly. It's about taking what you learned this year, not just through the podcast, but through your own experiences and carrying that wisdom forward. So today, we're not rushing, we're not resetting, we're closing the year thoughtfully and intentionally. As we come to the end of the year, I want to intentionally slow the conversation around money because the noise is deafening. Everyone is talking and thinking about their goals, their resolutions, the big changes they're going to make. And the truth is, research has shown that 80% of persons give up by February. Can you believe that? And as low as 8 to 9% make it to the end of the year. So we're not going to recommend making New Year's resolution. Not because growth doesn't matter, because reflection is what allows growth to last. When we rush into the next season without reflection, we often repeat the same patterns, just with new intentions and the same outcomes. And I know a lot of you can relate to that because I've done my share of that. This episode is not about setting goals, creating a budget, or fixing everything before January. It's about closing the year with clarity instead of pressure. By the end of this episode, you should be able to clearly answer 3 questions. 1. What actually worked for me financially this year? 2. What didn't work? And 3. What is realistic and wise to carry into the new year? If you can answer those questions honestly, you are already positioned for what's next. This is meant to be a steady, practical conversation. You don't need to have spreadsheets or numbers. You just need awareness, honesty, and a willingness to learn from the year you lived. So I'm going to talk about 5 lessons that you can learn going into the new year. Lesson 1 is that awareness is financial progress. One of the most misunderstood ideas about money is what progress actually looks like. Many people believe progress only counts if the numbers improve dramatically. But in real life, financial progress usually begins long before the numbers change. It begins with awareness. Awareness is noticing patterns. Awareness is understanding what's actually happening instead of guessing. Awareness is looking without judgment. If this year you notice spending habits you hadn't noticed before, that matters. If you stop avoiding your accounts, that matters. If you realize certain systems don't work for you, that matters. Awareness allows you to make correction. Without awareness, you repeat patterns and then you call it maybe bad luck. Now, here are some practical signs awareness improved this year, and see if you recognize them in your own life. You knew when money was tight instead of being surprised. You notice emotional spending triggers. You recognize when convenience was costing you more than expected. Or you became more honest about what you can and cannot sustain. So ask yourself, what do I understand about my money now that I didn't understand last year? And you may come up with some answers, and some of them might look like this. I need simpler systems. I make worse decisions when I'm tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. I need margin more than I need more income. Or my income isn't the problem. My habits need structure. Now, that understanding is not small. It is the foundation for every wise financial decision you will make next year. Lesson two, financial drains and financial sustainers. Every financial year includes two forces operating at the same time: financial drains and financial sustainers. Drains are not just expenses, they are anything that consistently costs you peace, energy, or stability. And you can see this in every aspect of your life, really. You know what drains you. So, some examples of financial drain would include always reacting instead of planning. So, you're always in that state of emergency. Or you might realize that your convenience spending adds up quietly, and it includes things like food delivery, subscriptions, paying for services like cleaning, or even doing impulse online shopping. And we've spoken about the 24-hour rule on the podcast. Or it might be that you have too many bank accounts to manage. Do you know anyone like that? I know several persons who have so many bank accounts, and I'm wondering, why do you have so many accounts? Because what that does is cause you to have more things to manage, which can actually drain you. Now, sustainers, on the other hand, are things that quietly support you, the practices and tools you use to make sure that you have long term financial health and stability. An example of financial sustainers include automation. You automate your saving, your giving, and in some cases, your expenses, so you don't have to think about it. You have clear routines, so you set specific times to review your income and your expenses. The emergency saving, or the princess cushion as we call it. You have the financial cushion set up, and then you don't have to worry each time something happens. And then you also save at least 6 months of your expenses because that helps a whole lot. So ask yourself this question: what drained the most energy from me financially this year? What situations or patterns consistently made money feel heavy? Then ask yourself, what brought me peace this year? What reduced stress? What made money feel manageable? And the goal is not to eliminate every drain at once. The goal is to strengthen sustainers. Whatever you strengthen now determines how next year feels. So we've looked at two lessons. The first lesson, awareness is financial progress. And the second lesson is that you have financial drains and you have financial sustainers. The third lesson is that habits shape financial outcomes more than intentions, because most people have good financial intentions. And there's a saying that I like that says, the way to hell is paved with good intentions. So it is not enough to have good intentions. It's not enough to want to save. It's not enough to want to plan. It's not enough to want to make better decisions. You have to develop great habits. And so you can have helpful habits, as we know, or you can have hurtful habits. So we're going to look at some examples of what those might include. So for your finances, a helpful habit can be weekly or bi-weekly money check-ins. And we've spoken about that on the podcast also. Another one could be delaying purchases before committing. And the 24-hour rule comes in. So that rule seems to be popping up a lot, in our episode. Or tracking your expenses consistently. So these are habits that you can do. And then you have hurtful habits that we can recognize in our lives. And Some of those would include ignoring your balances. If you ignore it long enough, it will not go away. Or relying on credit for convenience, and this is where the emergency fund comes in. Or making decisions reactively. So these are hurtful habits. These are habits that hurt your financial situation. So ask yourself, and you'll be asking yourself a lot of questions during this podcast. So ask yourself, which habits made my financial life easier this year? And the next question will be, which habits made it harder? So you're not going to label yourself as bad with money, and we've spoken about this as well, but you're going to evaluate whether your habits that you have support the life that you want. So it's not about you, it's about your habits. And remember, your habits can change. All you have to do is start identifying them and start doing them one at a time. The fourth lesson that we're going to look at is, what do you need to release before the new year? Now, we all know that not everything from this year should come with you into the next one. So some things you have to release, some things you have to determine you're going to let go. And we're going to look at some of those. So the first one is financial guilt. Being guilty because you have enough, or maybe because you don't have enough. The next is comparison. Not everything is real. I've always said that comparison is a stealer of joy. All or nothing thinking. It's not all or nothing. Or punishment style budgeting. We've spoken about this before. Your budget is not restrictive, it actually liberates you, and it should include things that make you happy, things that make you feel good. Now, ask yourself a question, and that's what we're doing. We're evaluating, so we're asking ourselves questions, and we have the answers. Ask yourself, what financial pressure am I carrying that no longer serves me? And the next question is, what expectations am I placing on myself that are not realistic for me at this season in my life? Because so many times we have expectations that are not for our season. We're looking at other people. So we want to release the pressure, not because we want to lower our standards, but because we want to create room for sustainability in our lives. And so now we come to the last lesson number 5. And that is, this new year is not about resetting, it's about refinement. So as we start to turn our attention toward the new year, and I know all of us are doing that at this point because it's the end of the year, I want you to understand something. January does not require a reset, it requires refinement, because a reset assumes everything is broken. And we know it doesn't matter how bad things are, we know that everything is not broken. Refinement, on the other hand, assumes something is already working and it just needs to be strengthened. And that is where a lot of people go wrong financially. They assume that the answer to their financial issues is more intensity, when what they actually need is better alignment. So, another question. Instead of asking, what goals should you set? The question that you should be asking, a more practical question, is, what structure would support your real life better next year? So, what structure are you going to put in place? And that question, the answer to that question, changes everything for you. So, we're going to look at a number of steps to see how to build your support system going into the next year. So, step 1, stop trying to fix everything at once. One of the biggest mistakes people make in January is overcorrecting. They try to save more, spend less, pay off debt faster, invest, budget perfectly, and stay consistent all at the same time. That approach almost always leads to burnout by February. I mean, I'm having a hard time keeping up with all of those, just saying them. Instead, what I want you to do is focus on one category at a time, starting with the one that creates the most friction in your life. So, back to questions. Ask yourself, is my biggest issue awareness? Is it follow through? Is it inconsistency? Is it lack of margin? Or is it decision fatigue? You don't have to fix all of it. You need to relieve the biggest point of pressure first. So that's step one. Step two is to choose one primary financial focus. So for January, choose one primary focus, not all. These are some of the focuses you can look at, and I'll just show you how it looks realistically. So, awareness focus. If you want to concentrate on awareness focus, then the statement that you would say is, I want to consistently know what's happening with my money. If it's a stability focus, you would say, I want fewer surprises and more predictability. If it's a consistency focus, you would say, I want simple habits I can actually maintain. There's no best choice, there's no right answer. It's the one that fits into your life. So don't focus on everything, focus on one. And once you've chosen that focus point, then you go to the next step where you turn it into a practical habit. So, for example, if your focus is awareness, then you want to know what's going on with your money. So then you'll start a 10-minute weekly money check in, and that's a habit. And it's 10 minutes. We all can do that. If your focus is stability, then you want to start automating your bills or your savings. If your focus is consistency, then choose one day a week to review your finances. The thing is that these are very small, simple things that you can do, and that is by design because small habits are repeatable. It's easy to do, you do it over and over. Once you've done that, then the next step is that you have to define what success realistically look like for you. Not don't be unrealistic. Success in January is not perfection, it's not zero mistakes, it's not, executing it without any flaws. But what success is showing up more often than not, noticing the patterns and adjusting instead of quitting. And lastly, you're going to not let January be a performance month, but let it be a testing ground. And that I think is one of the biggest problems that we have. And that's why people quit by the second Friday in January. I didn't even know that was a thing where people quit by the second Friday in January. So we're not trying to do that. Just make sure that in January, you are testing the ground and seeing what's working. So you're going to ask yourself some more questions and say, does this habit fit my life? Because then you might realize, this doesn't fit. Or does this system actually reduce my stress? Does what I'm doing, does it feel sustainable? Am I going to carry it through the end of the year? And if it doesn't, then you're getting good feedback. But what that means is that you don't quit. You realize that this is not working and you do whatever is necessary to make sure that you bring yourself back, and then you give yourself consistency. You create good habits so that you can last longer than February. Those are the 5 lessons that we can learn, the 5 things that we can take into the new year, which will definitely improve our financial situation. So, those are the 5 lessons that we can learn, the 5 things that we can take into the new year, which will definitely improve our financial situation. Now, as you step into the new year, remember that you don't need a reset because everything is not broken. You need refinement. You don't need to become someone new. You are already who you are. You just need some system and that supports who you are. And what this does is build financial confidence. So, as we close out this year and the first year of Financial Flourish, I want you to understand that you don't have to be perfect. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to be aware of what's going on, and you need to be willing to keep learning to make changes if that's necessary. I just want to take this time to thank all of you for listening, for thanking you for trusting me with your time, and thanking you for being a part of Financial Flourish this year. I thank God for everything that we've accomplished this year. You know, when we started in April, it just seemed like an insurmountable task. It was so scary. And look at us, we're here at the end of the year now, doing our 26th episode. Now, if today's episode helped you think differently about your finances, share it with a friend who you think can benefit from this information. Connect with us on Instagram @_Financial Flourish. We are now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And guess what? We just started a YouTube channel. So search for us, Michele Pemberton or Financial Flourish, and you can keep in touch with us there. As we move into January, we're building on what you uncover here, turning clarity into simple, sustainable habits that actually support your life. No pressure, no overhaul, just wise, steady progress. I so look forward to connecting with you. And as you take one more step towards your financial goal, don't forget to flourish.